Hey, welcome to part 3 of our magic flower tutorial. So in part 1, we modeled this guy. Part 2, we did the UVs. So that's what it came out to look like. Now these could probably be overlapping and maybe laid out a little bit better. But for the sake of this tutorial, I'm fine with the way they are. And if you click on this button here, you can see that all the grid squares look really nice. So this is going to give us a nice texture, right? Now the reason, I'm just going to state the obvious, the reason you want to overlap a lot of these leaves, if you wanted to optimize your UV, so essentially create a higher resolution texture. So, if this is a game asset and you could only, and you're really watching the file size of your assets, right? You want to make sure that the texture is as small as possible. So like maybe 512 by 512. And if the texture gets really small, then the UVs need to get larger, right? To maintain the color information. But because this flower is so simple, I'm not planning on painting anything insane, just some basic colors and basic shadows and substance painter, so this will work. But if you wanted to actually get into like beautiful leaf paintings with stems and detail on the leaves, you definitely would want these leaves to be much larger. So for a 512 texture, the leaf should be maybe about this size, right? And for that to happen, you don't have enough room in your UV sheet, so then you would have to overlap all your leaves. So that's essentially the concept. I just wanted to run it by those who are not sure. Maybe you're starting out and just basic knowledge. All right, so in this case, I'm just gonna move forward and jump into Substance Painter and maybe paint this guy up real quick. And I'm not even gonna reference my initial image, or the reference image. I'm just gonna just have fun with it. The only other thing that I would like to do is, he kind of seems kind of lonely. It would be really cool if we put him maybe on top of a rock. So I'm gonna grab this box here and just let's make a really simple rock. So maybe I'll drag this out, I'll go to mesh and do a smooth. Maybe give myself some geometry. I want to maintain this low poly, that's fine. And maybe my rock could be somewhere here. And let's sculpt this a little better. And then the flower could be, essentially on top of it, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to sculpt this a little bit. So I'm going to grab this tool here and just let's pull some of this stuff out, make it a little more rock-like. Now, why is the flower growing out of the rock, you may ask? That's a good question. Now keep in mind, this is a magical flower, so it has magical powers, and one of its powers is obviously growing on top of a rock. So I'm just going to do a little more sculpting. I'm not sure why my computer fan just kicked in. I'm not doing anything intense, but I apologize for that. Alright, so let's go ahead and maybe add, let's add some detail here just for fun. So maybe I'm going to grab my knife tool and just let's make a cut from like here to like here. And essentially what I want to do is maybe create like a crack in the rock. Maybe do one on this side as well. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab these points here and just pull them in. So create like a illusion of like a crack. I think that's just a little more interesting. And if we wanted to, we could also do it a different way. We could also select an edge and do a bevel, essentially the same concept. And then if you add more segments, you can have one in the middle, and that could also give you a clever way to create like a crack in the rock. And I don't want this to be super symmetrical because it's starting to look like almost like a butt crack. So that's not what I'm looking for. So I'm just gonna kind of move these, make it a little more organic maybe. And you can always come back to your sculpting tools, grab like a smooth, maybe do a little smooth. Just mess this up a little bit. Alright, another thing you could do is maybe go to mesh display, and instead of doing soft edges on everything, one thing we could try is do soft and hard edges. And if we check our settings, mine is currently, I'm going to reset this, is at 30 degrees, 30-degree angle. So I'm going to say soft and hard, and what that's going to do is it's going to find anything that's within 30 degrees, it's going to smooth it, and then anything that's like this is 90 degrees, it's going to make it look really sharp. And I think that works for what I'm looking for. If I go into the poly modeling tab and turn off my wireframe unshaded, you can see what that looks like. So this to me makes sense. This line here doesn't really make sense. So I'm actually gonna manually select these edges here, and let's go ahead and do a soft edge. I think that's a little better. So just so I have something for the flower to sit on. Now the only other thing obviously I need to do is, no one is going to see the bottom of this. So let's go ahead and delete these extra edges. We can hold down the shift and a period on our keyboard to grow our selection. You can hold down the shift and the comma to contract it or go back in. So this is out, this is in. And another thing we could do is grab our scale tool and maybe flatten this. So this is kind of like the bottom part of the rock. And again, I don't really need all of these extra poly, so I'm going to press delete. Very nice. Now let's just jump into the UVs, and let's do a quick projection from the top. Do apply and do a unfold. Alright, and if I look at my 1-to-1 space here on the UVs, I can see that this is about the right size. Maybe I can get it a little larger. I'm going to press R and just scale this up, but I want to make sure I don't go past these lines here. Right? Alright, and if we wanted to check the UVs, you can make sure again that this button is pressed and you can see how that's looking. I think it looks good. I'm going to close this. And before we jump into Substance Painter, the only other thing we want to make sure is that we apply a material to our rock. So this thing is called a flower. If I go to material attributes, I can see that it's currently has a foam material applied to it. So I'm just going to rename this. I'm going to call this flower underscore material, and I'm going to apply another foam material to my rock. And let's go ahead and call this rock underscore material, and that should be it. Alright, let's go ahead and jump into Substance Painter. I'm gonna select my flower. I'm gonna press 1. I don't really want this to be smoothed out. If you press 3, again, you can preview what it looks like if it's smooth. Same thing with the rock. You can press 3 and see what that might look like, which looks kind of cool. I'm gonna select both, press 1, and I'm going to call this a rock, and I'm just going to export these out to Substance Painter. So let's go ahead and do that. File, export. Alright, so here I am in Substance Painter. Let me import my FBX that I just exported out of Maya. I'm gonna leave the textures at 1K. That's fine. It's just gonna be a small game asset. I don't need the textures to be really high. And I'm gonna select my FBX. All right, here it is. This is the name that I gave it: flower with rock. Very creative, very original. I'm gonna say okay. All right, so this is what I wanted to show you, and I left the flower in this condition on purpose to show you what you need to do. So if you import a flower and you see that your edges look really hard, right? These are all hard edge. Now the rock, you know, you might review the rock and say, oh, that looks pretty good. Maybe I don't like this line here, but I do like this line here. The flower should definitely have soft edges, right? So for this reason, what you need to do is just leave this as is and jump back into Maya. And in here, you can see kind of a close representation of the same thing that we saw in Substance Painter. So I'm going to select my flower and go to Mesh Display and do a soft edge on the entire flower. And this looks much better for something that is organic, right? And another thing that maybe, you know, I don't like is, I like some of these edges, but not maybe all of them. So maybe I can get rid of some of them. Now you can press G on your keyboard to repeat the last command, which was smooth. And now this seems a little better. I kind of actually like how this is looking. This seems a little too symmetrical. If we have an organic shape, maybe we can mold these together and create something that's not so symmetrical. So something like that makes more sense maybe. Again, it just comes down to artistic preference, right? So let's do this again. Let's select both of these and overwrite our FBX. Once you've done that, jump back into Substance Painter, and this time let's go to Edit, Project Configuration, and let's just select the FBX and just say OK. And you can see as soon as you've done that, it's going to update your soft edges or your edges from whatever your setting was on your end. So that is a cool way to update your geometry even after you did some textures. So even if you had all these textures here, you can always update your base. As long as you didn't change the UVs, it should maintain all the color information, which is kind of cool. All right, so next let's go ahead and start painting our guy. So the very first step would definitely be going to baking. And I'm going to set my output size to 1K. I'm going to check use low poly mesh as high poly. And the only other thing I'm going to do is set my anti-aliasing to 2x2 and do a bake. All right, once it's done, you can review your asset and see how it's looking. If you guys have any dark spots that are part of your mesh, that means you need to go back into Maya and make sure that your UVs are laid out nicely and nothing is overlapping. Usually dark spots will mean that some of the elements are overlapping in the incorrect way. So you want to make sure that your UVs are clean. If they are clean, then you should have something very similar to what I'm seeing here. Just a nice baked mesh, right? So if you hold on the shift key and right click, you can move your lights around. You can also change your lights by going here and changing the different HDRs, right? So I'm just going to click on something like glazed patio, and I do like to turn my shadows on, but I set them really low. And then another thing that I personally like to do is turn on the anti-alias. It's not that big of a difference, but these edges drive me crazy personally if they are not anti-alias, so I do like them smooth. So that's a preference. It doesn't do anything to the actual texture, it's only in the preview, so keep that in mind. Alright, so so we have two materials. Let's click on the rock. I'm just going to delete everything and just come to my library here and just type in something like rock. Now you can grab these from the substance source. Doesn't really matter, just grab any rock material that you like. I like this stylized dirty rock, so I'm just gonna drag it on. See what that's looking like. We can always come here and play with some of these. I actually liked this option better, so it's a little closer to what I was thinking. This works. I would like to have the shadow, the dark part of my crack to be a little darker, so maybe I can grab my pencil or brush, not pencil, a brush. I'm gonna hold on the Alt key and click on color and just do a black color, and let me see what that looks like. All right, I'm gonna change the size, and I do want to have the inside of this to be kind of darker, so it looks like there's some depth to it. So I'm gonna be kind of messy painting it real quick, and I can always grab my eraser and just clean this up real quick. I'm gonna grab my brush and do the same thing to the other side. I believe it is here, so I'm just gonna. Now, if you can't see well, like in my case, it's kind of hard to see where the edges are. You could go to display settings and just turn on your show wireframe just for certain specific times when you're painting and you really need to see where your lines are. So I'm just gonna again be messy initially, and then just grab my eraser and just clean this up real quick. You could hold on the Shift key and do a straight line if you needed to. That's a good way to create sharp edges, if that's something you would like to do. All right, so I'm done with this. I'm gonna turn off my wireframe, take a look. And this is definitely too dark, so maybe I can change it to soft light, and maybe change the intensity, just so I have something there, but not too dark. Again, comes down to preference, right? Another thing we could do is maybe highlight some of these edges. So let's do another layer on top, and I'm gonna just go to my brush again, and maybe this time select something lighter, like I'm just gonna go with white. And actually, for this part, I would like to see my edges as well. And let's just quickly do like a highlight. So let's do something like this, and maybe like this for one. And let me go ahead and do this side, do the same thing. Now I'm kind of doing this quickly. Obviously you are welcome to put a little more love into this. I'm just kind of demonstrating my process. So maybe something like that should work. Now we can do maybe we can do overlay, we could do a soft light. We can also go to filter and blur this, so it's a little more organic looking. All right, let's turn off our wireframes, take a look. So that's cool. The other thing we could do is maybe it's a good idea to also name our layer. So this would be highlights. This would be dark. I'm not sure what to call it. Dark extrusions, holes, crevices, and then this is going to be our base, right? So another thing we could do is add another fill layer on top. I'm going to do Alt Color, right click, and go to Filter, and let's go ahead and do a baked light over this. And then what I'm going to do is set it to soft light, and you can turn it on and off and see that it's just adding even more information. So I'm kind of liking this. I'm thinking the highlight looks a little too dark now, so I'm just gonna dial this down a little. Maybe 70 is actually looking really nice. All right, so I'm happy with my rock. I'm gonna move on to the flower. For the flower, I'm just gonna delete what this is by default. Just grab a new fill layer. Let's go ahead and, I don't really want it to be too shiny, so move the roughness somewhere in this area and maybe set it to kind of green. Maybe kind of a darker green for the base. All right. Let's have some fun with painting. So I'm just gonna grab another fill layer. I'm gonna go to green. I'm gonna sample my green and make it kind of lighter. And let's just see if we can just grab our brush and maybe select kind of a soft basic. And let's see what that looks like. We can also go to this view and just kind of see what that looks like. Maybe this could be easier to paint on. So I'm gonna do just a kind of a highlight in the middle of the flower for the leaves. And I'm kind of happy with this. I'm gonna go to filter, add a blur, and maybe let's do an overlay or a soft light. Let me try a couple different options here and see what I actually like. I'm actually going to leave it on normal and just turn this up just a little bit, maybe to like 20%, maybe like 25%, just so there's some highlights. And another thing we could do just for fun is add another layer over all of this. Let's go to color and let's just add some noise to this. So maybe I'm just gonna grab this first one and do overlay, or maybe let's do a soft light and just really turn this off and then just dial this back up just a little so there's something on the flower. So maybe like at 12%. I kind of like this. I think just adds maybe a little more. I'm liking 25, so you can see there's something going on there, so it's a little more interesting. Again, you can take the time and paint the stems and all that beautiful stuff. I'm just gonna go with something like this. Let's add some bright colors to these. So maybe do a color and let's do maybe like a yellow for like the middle ones. I'm gonna do a black mask, grab my Polygon Fill and just click on these guys here. And I like the yellow. I'm pretty happy with this. Let's go ahead and grab the next one down. So maybe these could be kind of a red color. I'm gonna do old click and let's choose red. Maybe kind of a orangey red. Do a black mask and let's go ahead and do Polygon Fill, and I'm just gonna click on these guys here. Kind of the top tier is what I like. These here, because this is a magic flower, keep in mind. Let's do something funky. Let's keep repeating the same process. I'm gonna choose, I'm not sure what would look nice. Maybe purple. I'm gonna go with purple. Do black. Let's see what that looks like. That looks pretty magical. I like this. Another thing we could do is maybe go ahead and add another fill layer. Do color, right click, let's go to filter and let's do a bake light. And set this to soft light. And you can see the difference. Just adds a little more, even more detail. All right. Another thing we could do is on the purple, I would like to have some more stuff going on there. Let's go ahead and add another layer over the purple. Just grab the color and let's just do something fun. Like, let's find a fun pattern, a color pattern. So I like these actually, these cold cells. You can type in cells in the search box and you should see this. Yeah, I like this a lot. I think this is great. Let's right click and do a black mask and let's do a polygon fill and just select these only. All right. And for the blend, let's do like an overlay, or you can play around and see what looks good. They'll all give you different results, but I think overlay is what I'm gonna go with, and just turn this down to like maybe like 40. All right, I think that looks nice. Again, artistic preference or choice. It would be fun if these were glowing. Let's maybe make them glow. So I'm gonna go to channels here. Let's go ahead and add emissive. And for our emissive, I'm going to add another fill layer on top. I'm gonna do Alt and click on the emissive. And let's go ahead and do a black mask and just select the yellow guys, right? Using the Polygon Fill and the Mesh Fill. Just gonna select these only. And you can see on the bottom, it's kind of hard to see, but these were selected. So now if I go back into the emission, I can change the emission to maybe yellow. And obviously it's not glowing right now because our shader is not set up to glow. So let's go ahead and switch to 3D only. All right, so let's go to our display settings, turn on active post, and just for fun, we can turn vignette on so we can kind of give us a pretty presentation. We can also turn on glare. Let's turn the glare on. And maybe in glare we can do a bloom. And let's go ahead and play with the luminance. We can crank this up and you can see how it's changing the luminance of the flower. So maybe something like that, so it's a little more magical looking. Another thing you could do is obviously play with options here. I kind of actually like this. This is kind of cool. Another thing you could do is come to shader settings, and in shader settings, if you go to the very top, you have something called emissive intensity, and you can crank this up as much as you want to create even more. There's even more control over what your image looks like. And I think I like this. Let's go ahead and take a look and see what this looks like in iRay. I'm going to click on iRay and make sure you save this. So let's go ahead and save this. Go to iRay. And this looks really nice. I'm going to change my environment to maybe, let's go ahead with this. See what, actually see what makes sense. I actually like this one here, and another thing we could do is turn off the background. and maybe set this to like a custom color. I kind of like this. This is fun. We can change the environment rotation of our current HDR, which is this. So we can play with the rotation and see how our image is looking from different angles of the light. So maybe find something that makes sense that you like. I kind of like this. I think this is great. And the other thing we could do is come here into our settings and maybe crank this up to like 10 minutes to give us more iterations. Right now I'm at 1,000. You can of course control this as much as you like. If you wanted to save this as a PNG, you can always just come here, do a save render, and just make sure the extension of your rendering is saved as a PNG, and then the background will be transparent. So I hope you enjoyed this quick tutorial, and thank you for watching. Please subscribe, like this video, and I'll see you in the next one. Have a great day.